Hello and welcome to the third big real-world project in this course. And so this one is of course about CSS grids. So without further ado, let me show it to you. So here it is. This is the project that we're going to code in this section. So this is the landing page of a fictional company called Nexter, which sells luxury homes across the world. And so their slogan is "Your own home, the ultimate personal freedom." Okay? So once again, I designed and built this project specifically just for this course. And the goal of this project is basically to use as many grids here as possible. Okay, so there are not like these fancy effects going on like we had in the other project, but instead I really focused on a CSS grid here. And so the entire layout of the page is of course with CSS grid. And then I also used grids in many smaller components. Like for example here on this side here we have a CSS grid. Then this entire header here works as a grid. For example, these elements here are also laid out in a grid. Of course, when you come down here, you see that this is also a grid here. And these images are also laid out as a grid. And so you see that all of these components here are really designed so that we can use grids in many different situations, so that we can apply all of these properties that I showed you in the last section in real world scenarios. Okay. So this beautiful card here is also entirely coded up in grid. And so you will see how easy it is actually to build it with grids. So you will see how little CSS we actually have to write. Okay. Then down here, of course, you see this is yet another grid. And this time with a typical application, which is like an image gallery like you have here. And then just a small footer. Okay. And of course, this entire thing is completely responsive as well. So let's check that out. Okay. So let's make it a bit smaller maybe. Okay. So you see this is the page. And then of course it's completely responsive as well. So for example at this width here, you see that this changes like from this 3 column to these 2 columns here. Okay. And down here also everything changes. And here now you have 2 columns as well. And yeah, you see that also the sidebar moved up here to the top. And when we reduce this even further, then of course we have this 1 column layout basically with everything in a mobile view. Okay, so I hope that you're excited about this project. I really tried to make it beautiful again, just like the other projects, so that you feel great about yourself once you finished it, and show potential clients that you built this here with the new CSS grid technology. Okay, and so I hope that you already downloaded the starter files to start with this project from the GitHub repository that I included in the beginning of the course. So I already have the starter files here on the desktop. And I already have it opened here in VS Code. Okay, so let's very quickly go through the starter files that I have here. And this is actually very similar to the last Trello project. Okay, so we have a CSS folder, then we have the images, and we actually have a lot of images this time. Okay, then we have the Sass folder, and you notice that this time I already created the CSS files so that we don't have to create them one by one, and they are already here imported in this main file. And so I don't have to do all of this in the videos. And so you see that the architecture here is also slightly different than what we had in the last project. So I have now 1 file for each part of the website basically. But I'm going to go deeper into why I did it this way a bit later. What matters for now is that we're going to start with the base CSS file, where this time I also already have the color variables here and also some font variables. Okay. Then of course also the index file, where we have the Google fonts already included. This time it's called Josephine Sans and something called Nunito or something. Then of course the style is already included, the fav icon, the title is already here, and then the empty body element. Okay. And finally, also the package.json file, and this is again very similar to the last Trello project. So we have our watch CSS and dev server scripts here to basically start our development workflow, where at the same time we watch for Sass changes and we have our dev server. Then down here, this is like our build process, and I'm going to talk about that a bit later. All right. So up here we say Nexter and next web page as a description, and so everything is ready to work here. Now let's actually install these dev dependencies that we have here, because you see we have no node modules folder here on the left side. So we have to open up our terminal and do npm install here. So let me increase this a bit for you. So cd desktop and 3 Nextdoor. And you can of course navigate to wherever your project file is located on your file system. And now I'm going to run npm install. And remember that what this does is that basically it looks at our package.json file and then installs all of these dev dependencies that we have listed here in this file. And now you see that the folder is already here. And so let's now very quickly, just to test if everything works, let's start by creating like our global settings here in this base.scss file, okay? So we start very quickly with our global reset. So we see everything, including the pseudo elements, before and after. And as always, we set their margin to 0 and their padding to 0. And we also say box sizing inherit. And we're then going to inherit that from the HTML. Okay, and so this is where we have box sizing set to border box. And I already explained you why we did it this way in the last project, right? Now another thing that we do here in the HTML always is to set our overall font size. And so we're going to go with the same technique that I showed you before. So we're going to set it to 62.5%. And that's so that 1 rem equals exactly 10 pixels. Okay, so let me actually write it down here for you once again. So 10 pixels divided by 16 pixels, which is the browser default, makes 62.5%. And so this way, 1 rem equals 10 pixels. Okay, and now just the global like font settings on the body element. And so we set the font family, and actually I already have a variable here. So we set it to font primary. And the primary font is then this Nonito font here, okay? Then the color that I chose should be this color gray dark here. So color gray dark. So it's this one here. So again, we have our primary color, of course, which is this like this gold color. So I chose gold color for this brand because it's luxury homes, as I was telling you in the beginning. And so therefore gold seemed to be a good color choice for that, okay? Then the secondary color is like this very dark blue, which plays very well with gold. And so that's why I chose that. And then we have, of course, the lighter grays as always and the darker grays. And they're like a bit also like brown. And that's because that complements the gray primary color in a bit better than if we would just have used a pure black-based gray. So you see here on the color thing here that this is close to the gray sides, but also in a bit in the golden part of the color spectrum. So let's then actually use that. Color gray dark 2. Okay, the font weight that we want is 300, and I can use 300 because that's what I included here from the Google font. Okay, so I have Nonito and I have font weights of 300 and 300 in italic. And the same here for the Josephine Sans, which will be more for titles. Okay, so I chose the Nonito font as the overall font family because it's a bit more neutral. And then this Josephine Sans we have in weights 300, 400 and 400 italic. And this one will be for the titles. So this time we have 2 fonts. Okay, so font weight of 300. And so it's kind of a thinner font, and that gives it once again a bit more a luxury feel to the entire page. And that's what we're looking for in a design like this. Finally, the line height should be 1.6. And now let's just add some dummy text here, just so that we can test if our development workflow is actually working properly. So let's check out the terminal actually here. And yeah, it looks like everything worked just fine. And so now we can do npm run start. But before we do that, actually, let's come back to the package.json file, and we can do one small change here in the live server. And that is to set the browser. Because if we just run it like this, then it will basically launch our default browser for the dev server. And so it will launch Google Chrome. But remember that because of the CSS Grid dev tools that we want to make use of, we have been using Firefox in this part of the course. And so we're going to do that in this project as well. And so what we can do here is to specify the browser option. So we write browser and then Firefox. And so it will automatically open up in Firefox instead of Google Chrome. Okay. So npm run start. And actually for the start script, I'm not sure if I have told you this in another lecture, but for the start command, we actually don't even need to type run, okay? So for start, we just need to type npm start. And now let's see. And yeah, here we go. So test text. However, it doesn't really look like our Sass styles is already applying here. And I'm sure that's because we still have to save the file. So remember that here, this Sass script that we're running here. So this one here, the watch Sass task, which is the one that we're running, is waiting for changes. And so it's only going to compile the Sass file when we save it. Okay, so let's give this one a save. I didn't even change anything, but I just saved it. Okay, and so let's check it out here. And yeah, it's changed something. And so let's go to Firefox. And so now you see it changed. Let's actually get it back to 100% here. And so now you see here that this is the lighter gray text and already with the font family that I specified. And so just as before, we have the final version here on this side so that we can take a look at what we want to build. And then here, of course, our development version. And so right now we're ready to start with the project. And so yeah, that's what we're going to do in the next lecture, where we're going to start building the overall layout of this page. So I hope you're excited for that. And so come join me in the next video.